This is Karen Falk interviewing Mr. Sam Seidel at his home in Salisbury, Maryland, and it is April 30th, 2001. So, Mr. Seidel, I basically want to hear about your life in Salisbury, your families, and about your activities and what you did here, and anything that you can tell me about the Salisbury and Jewish community and about being Jewish in Salisbury, not just necessarily about the community itself. So why don't I start by asking you where you were born and when?
I was
There were 3 yellow folders on the desk, none of them.
It has an obituary on it. What?
You were born when?
I was born December 28th, 1922, in Salisbury, Maryland.
Okay, in Salisbury.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
My parents moved here in about 1920, and it was the typical story of young Jewish families looking for a place to make a living, and they came from Philadelphia, and there was immigration here from Philadelphia, from Baltimore, from New York, and I'm going ahead of myself, but in the 30s, if you went down Main Street, most of the stores on Main Street were run by Jews. In fact,
in Salisbury.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, during Jewish holidays, the Main Street closed down just about. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but
that's okay.
My father had a grocery store which was just off Main Street on Market Street, and quite often and at one time, the synagogue was on the 3rd floor of my father's store, and when somebody needed a yurt site, mm-hmm. I set up Main Street to say that Mr. Ginsburg needs a yurt site. We need 6 more people,
Uh-huh.
And most times we got a minion. I remember not getting a minion,
Uh-huh.
because that was something we were kind of taught, that you never. You provided a service where it's necessary.
Uh-huh. So you would go to all these Jewish businesses, mm-hmm. and grab the owner out. Or whoever was.
Exactly, yeah,
sorry, what?
And I didn't exactly grab them, but I would say that we need a minion at 6 o'clock, and they knew what I meant.
Uh-huh.
As I said, my father came down here in 1920. I was born in 1922. Interestingly, my parents' house was right across the street from the hospital. Mm-hmm. But my mother had all her children in her house because she heard about some children getting mixed up in the hospital or something.
Oh my.
And whether it happened or not, I don't know, but all the children were, the doctor, quote, came to our house and brought us. That's what we were told as kids,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. How many were there?
3.
Okay.
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest.
We went to the public school here. Yeah, are you having any trouble understanding me?
No, I can understand you, but before you get to school, let me just ask you a little bit more about your father. How did he happen to come to Salisbury?
Well, I think he hit Lower Town first. He didn't make it, and then he came to Salisbury. That's all I can tell you.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they just, one Jew tells another Jew. I mean, he was not the first Jew here, of course.
Mm-hmm. Do you know who was?
Well,
1920. Yeah, 1920, I guess. I guess Feldman was already here.
Mr. Feldman, I think, came about 1912 or
uh-huh.
10.
Uh-huh.
And I think Benjamin sometime shortly after that.
Yeah.
The earliest Jewish family that I can put my finger on, but they didn't practice Judaism by the time I came along, with the Ullmans, U-L-M-A-N. And the generation that was living um, as I was growing up, did not consider themselves Jewish.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. So they'd been here.
We figured the old ones must have come about the 1870s.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about it sometime, and I don't know where that information came from, but that's that was one person's opinion. And the last of the old ones died out. Oh, I'd say in the last 15 years. Or so.
Did they have? Were they the ones that had? I may be remembering the wrong town actually, but there was like an opera house or a. Was that family?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Ullmans had a theater they had a furniture store on the first floor, and a theater on the second floor.
Okay.
And their theater had Western movies on weekends. I know I used to go Friday night to see Ken Maynard and Buck Jones and so on.
Uh-huh. So they might have been the first, but they certainly didn't last as Jews, and they didn't have a community of any kind, apparently.
No, the community really started with this synagogue. I mean, now my grandfather came over from Russia, and he was a rabbi, and the story that I was told is that he came to the United States, to Albany, New York, but he didn't like what his wife had to go through being a Remington, So he, I think with my father's help, opened a dry goods store, clothing store.
In Albany?
No, down here. I think in Philadelphia first.
Uh-huh.
And then he came down here after his daughter and my father got married.
Got it. I see.
And they actually went to Princess Anne, a little town 12 miles south of here. In fact, about 5 or 6 years ago, Lynn and I drove down there and we figured out which house they lived in.
Uh-huh.
In fact, there was a man living until 7 or 8 or 10 years ago that knew my grandfather down in Princess Anne. A man by the name of George Fitzgerald. He was a treasurer at a local bank, and he used to tell me about my grandfather.
Wow.
See, where are we now?
So, yeah, I know. I'm thinking I'm going.
No, go ahead. It's better if you ask me questions.
Sure. Yes. That's fine. And I'm trying to follow it too. So, your father came here and opened a grocery store, and we're not sure how he chose Salisbury, which I'd love to find. It's interesting that a lot of people don't know the answer to that question. It simply wasn't talked about.
Yeah.
How did he do in the grocery store, in the business? Was it
father, he made a living.
Uh-huh.
My father was not, by my standards, my father was not a very good businessman. I mean, he could run a grocery store, and he could, but he didn't take care of things, like I feel he should. But we made a living, and we always had enough to eat, and he never went bankrupt or anything like that. Although in 1939, he actually closed his store. He didn't go bankrupt, but he could see the handwriting on the wall. And if he'd held out to World War II, he would have done well, but he didn't.
Yeah,
do that.
It was tough. Those were tough years. Did your mother work in the store with him?
Yeah, she did. She used to work some of the afternoons in the store. It was a pretty tough life. The store was open like from 7 in the morning to about 7 at night. And then on Saturday it was open from about 7 in the morning to about 1 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And the grocery store was like the community center. I remember Saturday nights they sit around the stove, and I've seen somebody. I went to. Have you ever been to Branson, Missouri?
No.
it's a country music place, and they have some of these skits. And these skits are exactly like they were, and you know how they sat around the stove in the store and they spit in the stove and all. And my brother and I talked about it. I said, we lived this. We saw this thing happen.
Wow. Was it the only grocery store in town?
Oh no. He was not one that. There was no chain groceries or anything there. I guess he was one of the 3 or 4 larger grocery stores in town. But by today's standard, it'd still be small.
Yeah. Well, how did people? You really got me thinking about this. So who would come and hang out at the store? I mean, it sounds like would it always be the same crowd? Or?
Yeah, his crowd was mostly farmers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they dealt with him. See, he did a lot of trading too, in this respect. That a lot of farmers would bring in, like I can remember eggs, and we would count out the eggs, and then they would trade those eggs for groceries. And it would be those same people that would hang around, and they were friends themselves, you know. And they'd come in and they'd hang around.
What was your father's name?
Joseph.
And your mother's name?
Anna.
Did your father count those farmers as his friends? You think, or?
I think so. It's because it's kind of interesting. For many years, I'm talking about it, as years went on, like a lot of people knew me as Joe's boy. And they couldn't remember my first name, but they said, "You're Joe's boy." Yeah, that's right. And when I ran for all, I was the first Jewish elected official here. I was the city council. When you run for office, you use anything to, when I say anything, I mean you use anything for identity. And for a certain place I went, and I said, you are my father, don't you have the grocery store down on Market? Oh yeah, you're Joe's boy.
It's an interesting picture to me of do you have pictures, speaking of pictures, do you have any photographs of the store or anything? Any family photographs or? That would be really interesting to see.
I can't think of any. I took something the other night somebody saw. Well, let's look around and look at some of these things and see if come with me.
Okay. No, okay. You started, in 1962 you started...
1952.
52. You did what?
I started Sam Seidel. Well, let me get the whole thing.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go back, actually, because if you want to, because you showed me a picture of your school. Talk a little bit about, going to school and as a kid, were there other Jewish kids there? And
not many.
You and your brother and
maybe
brothers?
1 or 2 other families. In that particular school. In high school, in my graduating class, I think there were maybe about 3 or 4 other kids, maybe as many as 5 or 6.
In your graduating class? That's actually quite a few.
Yeah.
Who were your friends? Was it the Jewish kids, or was it just about everybody? Who were your friends?
Everybody. See, I played a lot of sports, and that was kind of a great leveler, if you only played sports with Jewish kids, you wouldn't play with anybody, see. Anyhow, I went to high school there, and then I went to Salisbury State, or State Teachers College, it was called then. And the reason I went to Salisbury State is because it was free. If you took teacher training, it was free.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my junior year, I transferred to Maryland, College Park.
Mm-hmm.
And the magic of that was that I wanted to teach high school in the Salisbury State was only elementary school teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I graduated in '43, but they pulled me out about 2 months early, and I went in the Navy.
Mm-hmm. Now, who pulled you out?
I actually signed up for the Navy in November of November '42,
Uh-huh.
and with the understanding that I get to graduate.
Ah.
So they pulled me out in April, and they gave me a degree,
Ah.
but I went in 2 months early.
Mm-hmm. So you were in the Navy?
I was in the Navy about 3.5 years.
Uh-huh.
I went in as an ensign, or I went in as a seaman, then I went to midshipman school, and then I became an ensign. Are you familiar with the ranks?
About to there, yeah. It's
Yeah.
okay, you can explain it.
And I'm on a moored ship. Well, I stationed several different places, and I eventually went on a moored ship. And I was moored the same ship for 25 months. I was in the Pacific Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And spent 25 months in that area.
On one ship?
On one ship,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then when you were finished with the Navy, you came back.
I came back and I taught school at the local high school, Lycomville High School.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say at the local high school, there was a white high school and a black high school, and I naturally taught in white high school.
Mm-hmm.
We had segregated education.
Mm-hmm. Were you still teaching when things changed?
No,
You
I
know,
had to quit teaching.
yeah. No, that's true. You said in '52 you were already doing the insurance thing.
And that's when I quit teaching.
Uh-huh, yeah.
And segregation didn't end here until about the 60s.
Ah. Mm-hmm. What did you teach?
Well, I really wanted to be a coach, but I taught there's a course called General Business Training. It was a kind of combination of math and something.
Uh-huh.
And they gave me different subjects. I taught English, sophomore English for a year or so. An economics course, consumer economics. And that's what got me interested in insurance, the course I taught in consumer economics.
Uh-huh.
And I enjoyed teaching, but I felt that my future was not as a teacher.
Mm-hmm. Let me just ask you, was it unusual to be a Jewish teacher
I was the
in the school?
first one in the county that I know of.
Uh-huh.
Like my brother has said, there probably were other Jewish teachers before me, but they never indicated they were Jewish,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Uh-huh.
With me, I couldn't get away from it if I wanted to because I grew up in the town.
Right. So everybody knew.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What did that mean? I mean, in what way did it affect things?
Not a whole lot. It's kind of funny. The summer before I started teaching, people would, I was in a paper and I was coming out of the Navy going to teach. And people would come up to me, and I know what Jackie Robinson went through. They would ask me kind of these leading questions, and like, how do you look at this and how do you look at that, And I think I disappointed most people because I didn't. I looked at it the same way they would.
Uh-huh. Well, can you give me an example? Do you remember what would have been a question that was concerning them?
I think probably they were wondering whether I was going to try to influence their children in a way they didn't want to influence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the way I read it anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no more, I didn't have the ability to do it even if I wanted to. I wasn't, that deeply firm, involved in the Jewish.
Mm-hmm. Did you get a Jewish background growing up here? Did you get some kind of training? And where did that come from?
We had a rabbi.
Mm-hmm.
Between the rabbi that we had and my grandfather, I was bar mitzvah. And the other, I remember Rabbi Moffat, he used to have us around the dining room table. And there were about 5 or 6 of us. And we'd read Hebrew. Talking about boring. I mean, and if we started kidding around, he'd rap us on with a ruler. But at the end, at the last year, I left that class and I had my grandfather teach me.
Uh-huh.
And then he died about 2 or 3 months before I was bar mitzvah.
Oh.
That was a terrible blow. I didn't want to, I didn't believe that. I remember I went through a whole rebellion. I didn't believe there was a God, because if there was a God, he wouldn't take anybody as good as my grandfather was.
Yeah.
But they brought me around, and I was bar mitzvah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you say you didn't want to have a bar mitzvah as a result of that?
I just didn't want to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. I don't blame you. That must have been tough.
Yeah.
Bad time. So you got trained, and when you came back, actually, did your family keep kosher or anything? Did they have a?
In the early years, they did.
Uh-huh.
But because of the problem of getting meats, kosher meats and everything, we got away from it more and more.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember how they did get kosher meats when they?
Yeah, sure. There was a kosher butcher shop in Wilmington, Delaware.
Uh-huh.
And we used to have meat sent down on a bus.
Mm-hmm. What'd they do? Pack it in dry ice or something, or what they?
I guess. I don't know.
I often wonder about
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Did your mother have a freezer or anything? I mean, I guess did they have one in those days? Not in those days.
No. We didn't eat. We ate more chicken than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather was the guy that kills chickens.
The Schachter.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was Schochet.
Schochet, yeah. So we could always get chicken.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, on my father's grocery store on Friday afternoon, my father had a standing order for chicken from various customers, Jewish customers,
Mm-hmm.
and he would get the live chickens and send them over to by then my grandfather died. He sent them over to the shachet, and he'd pick them up and deliver them to him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you know where the shachet was then?
Yeah.
Who was that?
He was also the rabbi here then, Rabbi Moffat.
Okay, so he would do that.
It's only about 2 blocks from where the synagogue is now.
Uh-huh.
I remember taking the chicken to his backyard.
Oh, my. Oh. That must have been sort of an interesting combination.
Yeah.
He was teaching you guys, he was rapping your knuckles and shafting the chicken.
Not at the same time.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's very good. Okay. So you came back and you were teaching.
Yes.
When did you meet your wife?
Let's see.
And where?
Well, Lynn was a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
and I lived across from the hospital.
Uh-huh.
And I'd seen her several times, and one night I was in a nightclub in town, and I saw her. I didn't know her name, but I'd seen her, and I asked her for a dance, and about, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 months later, we got married.
Uh-huh.
My wife's a convert,
Oh, uh-huh.
and I think kind of something. She was a convert, and 5 years later, she was president of Hadassah.
Uh-huh.
That's quite a switch, isn't it?
Yeah. Was that, well, it's a personal question, but in your generation, for you to have married somebody who converted, did she have any issues with, with being accepted, and was there a problem in your family because of that, or?
Yes and yes.
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. But in 5 years, it sounds like she had already made herself indispensable to the community.
Well, it's hard to get presidents of Hadassah, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of much else. Is there anything else you could?
Well, oh yeah, I have plenty of questions.
Oh, yeah.
So you got married. What year was that?
God damn, can't remember. I'll say 54. No, not 50.
Was while you were teaching?
No.
Or you were done teaching already?
Like 50 to 50. Yeah, 1954 we got married.
Uh-huh. Okay. And I'm just trying to, oh no, I was just looking at my tape. Okay. So you started the insurance business. Was that something that was easy to do as a Jewish person? To be doing insurance, or was that a difficulty? Were there barriers to that, or was it sort of a natural thing?
No, it wasn't a natural thing. I don't know. It seemed like something I wanted to do, and I did it, and I lucked out. I mean, in fact, from the middle 1970s till the middle 1980s, or thereabout, I had the largest insurance operation. I had the largest privately owned insurance operation in the state of Maryland.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I had 2 parts of it, the Sam Seidel Agency and Peninsula Insurance. I sold them off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my monetary success came in.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said that you were what, county? You ran for...
I was on city council.
City council.
I was on for 20 years.
City council for 20 years?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Starting when?
66 to 86.
Uh-huh. Well, those must have been interesting years to do city council.
We were, yeah.
Yeah. What was it like running for office?
Well, the first time it's very difficult. It gets easier as you get in there. And I enjoy politics.
Mm-hmm.
I like to play the game, level. I mean, I think I did a good job for the community. I felt I was elected to take care of the community and get out of the personal things and all. I'll tell you, I can't talk to you much more, so see if you can get a few more questions.
Okay, all right. Well, that's whatever else that you can tell me about. I'm kind of curious about being an elected official and being a Jew in a community like this, and that's really what I'd like to hear about. I mean, how did you find that, and how did you find your, were you accepted? And they knew you, obviously, but did you feel that there was any lack of acceptance, or?
Not really, no. In some places, yeah. You just knew that certain places you weren't accepted, and you just didn't go there. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's true in any politics. You know that you're not going to do good in a certain side of town, and you stay out of that side of town. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I always did well in the black community.
You did? You did well. Mm-hmm. What were some of the issues that you worked on?
I was really a leader in integration.
Mm-hmm.
and I hit it head on. And you know, when they started, I would let the people would come up in front of the council and use the word digger, and I said, I don't understand what you're saying, and you know, I kind of got the word that I wasn't going to have that talking to me anyhow.
Well, that had some influence.
Yeah, I think people that knew me then and all, you know, I've had a lot of nice things said about me, and they think I was a force for good, you know, in the community.
I'm trying to think how to ask that. How did it go in Salisbury? Were there, you know, what was the intensity level of the fight? About integration. I mean, some places I've heard went fairly smoothly, and in other places, you know, there were, you know, major fights. Yeah.
We were not as bad as like Cambridge. Well, Cambridge was like war over there.
Okay. Well, I think maybe I've tested you to your limits here. I think, and I just want to say that I really appreciate your time, and I wish you the best.